Hello, listeners, and welcome to Beyond the Mirror. This isn't just another podcast, it's a deep dive into the world of beauty, wellness, and longevity. Now, we're here to discuss what beauty really means beyond just appearances. We'll also talk about wellness, the habits and practices that keep us healthy, full of energy, and we'll explore the topic of longevity, looking at the science and realities of living a long, fulfilling life. So sit back, relax, and join us as we go beyond the mirror.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Beyond the Mirror. We are beyond excited to have our guest today. Today, we are blessed with the presence of Mary Clarke from Mother Model, and we are going to dive into the discussion of how to find your authentic self. And I'm super passionate about this. I think we've kind of gone off the rails as a country and world with this.
Yes.
And so it's a very cool thing that you're working to help people do. But let's start with your first welcome.
Thank you.
And then let's start with your backstory. Like, how did you get here?
How many years do we have to talk about it? So I'm originally from Iowa. I became a single mom at 19 and thought, oh, this is not exactly how I thought my life was going to be unfolding. And in that time, I discovered I went to fashion merchandising school. That didn't last either. But I did, in that framework, go, I love putting on fashion shows. It started there. But you need to have models to be in the fashion shows. And I was doing fashion shows in Iowa at a mall that no longer exists, Westdale Mall, and fell in love with working with young girls, young women, and through the guise of fashion. So it literally started as a hobby. Wasn't making money yet, just loved it, just would do it just because it was fun. My ex-husband was like, well, I don't know why you're doing this. Why this? So it's practically costing you money to do it, but I just loved it. And I'm really passionate about, to this very day, encouraging people. Those things are there for a reason. And you need to nurture that natural interest or passion or love. So it started there. Then I discovered a guy, Ashton Kutcher, at a bar in Iowa at the Airliner. And that's when I realized this is a business. Previous to that, I kind of started to go, oh, okay, so there are agencies and they're looking for models. But for me, that was the tipping point. And it came at a really critical time in my life where I was in the process of getting a divorce, and my mother, God bless her, was like, maybe you should be a bank teller, or maybe you can go, we lived in Iowa, maybe you can go to General Mills because they pay really well. Like, it was that kind of a thing. And I was like, Mom, look at me. What I respect people that could do that, but that's just not who I am. Yeah. And it literally was a week later that I found Kutcher. And then I realized, oh, there's a business. There's a business. And his success happened really fast. I found him in February, took him to New York in July. He ended up booking things in that fall, and then got that 70 show the January of the next year. It wasn't even a year.
So it was very organic. It just happened.
It just happened really fast. And then, the long story short, I met my husband on a 4-hour layover. I was on a 4-hour layover from LA to Iowa.
So planes are big for you.
Planes are big.
Travel is big.
Right? Travel is big.
It's brought you a lot.
It's brought a lot. I had a 4-hour layover in St. Louis in 1997.
Okay.
That was when you could leave the airport and go.
And come back.
And come back really easily. So I there was a mall nearby, so I was like, I'll go to the mall. It was 4-hour layover. And my husband, Jeff, was working. He was managing a store called Structure at, is that Northwest Plaza?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the closest to the
That was the mall, yeah. Anyway, long story short, we move here. We continue to find models. Carly Kloss, Grace Hartzell, we find ourselves literally traveling the world, doing fashion weeks around the world, because at that time models could be younger. Now you need to be 18 to be doing at that level. But at that time, literally, there were models who were 16 years old doing the full.
Wow.
Which in hindsight, I was like, where did that
how did that start?
Everyone said, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
There won't be any issues.
No.
So that's when we started traveling with them. And then we've continued to do it. I think a couple of years ago, we've been doing it now 27 years. Yeah. 2 years ago, we celebrated 25 years in business.
Wow.
And we'll always continue to do it. But the fashion world, just like everything post-COVID, I feel like has changed.
Everything has changed.
Everything has changed.
Not even just COVID. Like, it's just this.
It is.
Evolution of everything. Everything is evolving.
Everything. I was walking our dogs yesterday in the neighborhood. We have a live work in Midtown. Right before COVID, this business literally spent multi-millions of dollars renovating these 2 buildings. I don't know if they're in tech, or I can't remember what anyway, they've sat empty ever since. And because now they work remotely and
there's no need.
There's not a need. So I'm like this big, and that happened in New York. There's massive buildings that are empty.
Yeah.
It's a lot of office.
I have not been to New York since before COVID. And when my clients come back, I'm in the stories, I'm like,
It's
wow,
a very
different.
It's so different.
Lots of restaurants are gone.
Yeah. All of our little
so
favorite,
sad.
like mom and pop. We know one that survived, that we always go back every time we go, but it was, they had to build, even when they were coming out of COVID and models started to travel, and you had to do all the testing, and models would have to quarantine. So you'd go, then you'd quarantine.
Oh my word.
So we'd have models literally sitting in a hotel room for 2 weeks
Oh,
by themselves.
How rough. That's terrible.
In another part of the world.
Oh my word.
So hard.
Yes. So anyway, everything is different. Everything is different. And even in the working with our models, part of what we really focus on now with them is confidence and communication, because I've seen this gigantic gap of their ability to communicate. Because we bring in a group of new models, maybe 15 models sitting in a room.
And they would not talk to each other?
They weren't talking to each other. They would be on their phone.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Not kidding.
But that's that whole age group.
So now I started this. I have a basket, and I said, you put your phones in here. You can look at them and lunch. And by the end of the day, they have to tell me something about
someone else in the room.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. Like my daughter's school, she goes to High Point University in North Carolina. And they have a couple of 5-star restaurants on the campus, but with a caveat, they're not allowed to use their cell phones. And they're trying to teach them the art of communication over dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It is a
kind of
social thing.
something that generation is starting to lose.
Yes. I just saw an interview yesterday. It was about, was it an award show or something within the entertainment world? I can't remember what it was. I can't remember who was talking about it. But what was interesting is they weren't allowed to have their phones as part of this event. And the organizer afterwards was getting all these emails and texts saying that was the most enjoyable night of conversation because we were all sitting and we had to talk to each other.
I know a bunch of the comedians, like we went to Chris Rock and they take your cell phone.
Yeah.
Well, they lock it up.
Yeah.
You have it.
We went too.
But it's
and they
locked up and you can't
access it.
You can't access it, which forces you to really engage with them.
Isn't it weird? I think we all like to think it doesn't make us feel anxious to not have our phone.
It does.
But it does.
It does. Yeah.
So for me, it's funny, like now that my kids are older, it's a relief. Like I have, as a practice for my own sanity, started leaving my phone in like silent mode in the mornings every day till at least 8:30 or 9 in the morning. So that it doesn't mean I'm not looking at things. Doesn't mean I'm not, picking up my phone and reading things.
Yeah.
It does mean that I'm not getting it in my face all morning long,
Yes.
the news blast and the this and the that.
Yes.
And maybe I can just center myself before the day starts.
Yeah, I'm like that. I don't know if you know who Jenna Kutcher is, but she has an amazing podcast. And she told this story about how her and her husband have created this practice. They have little kids that at a certain time, I think it's around dinner time, their phones go into, it's a box, and it sounds like maybe in the pantry of their, but they literally cannot access and don't go to the phone until the kids are back in bed or put down for the night. And even with them, they just check on it, but they leave it there. They don't take it in their room. They don't take it. I'm like, that. The hard thing for us is that we run our business from our phone.
Same.
And like with Jeff in particular, he handles the management. We're dealing with a lot of time zones. So you have to, there are times that in order to even communicate, it has to be within a window.
Because you have international people too.
Yes,
correct?
it's all, yes.
So
we have
it's all
models
time
placed
zones.
all time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, all time zones.
I do feel like even though we are more connected as far as technology, we've noticed that there's so much disconnection feeling. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
I've heard it. I feel like I've heard that referred to as the lonely generation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
And it's so sad.
Isn't it sad?
Yeah.
It is. But I
It's
think
heartbreaking.
it is because, I was thinking about raising our kids because when they were little, we didn't have cell phones, and they for sure didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
Or when I grew up, you would just go outside to be with your friends.
Yeah.
Even here's the other interesting thing, like we have a lot of models that they'd be turning 16 and they could get their driver's license. And I noticed this trend that
They're afraid to get their driver's license.
they don't even want to get it.
Yeah.
They don't need
They
it
don't want it.
because they can just
DoorDash or whatever.
Yes.
Get whatever comes.
Yes, but I see in that, I've seen a generation of girls riddled with anxiety and low self-esteem. And then if you can't communicate, that's a whole other thing, which part of being a great model is you go on set and you don't know anyone. So you need to, I always say, you're there to inspire the room. You are there to bring all the creatives together and everyone to feel great because you're the inspiration for what is being created. And part of that is communication. And they're not great at it. The other interesting thing too is for the ones that aren't confident in front of us, Jeff would always go, I see you on TikTok and you're not that person.
Right.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
So I want the TikTok you,
Uh-huh.
but without the safety of this
Yeah.
and actual engaging
To just be that confident
To
version
be-
of yourself.
Yeah.
is virtually impossible. And the other thing that we've learned through this time and is applicable really to so much after you've been doing something for decades, well, first of all, you're like, how is that possible? But second of all, you can look back and go, what were the common denominators of the ones that did really well? Because if it's a relatively even playing field of potential, or everyone has their own unique beauty or whatever it would be, they already checked those boxes. That criteria is already there. Plus that's just a gift. So you're
right.
And the number one thing is that the ones that really make it know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that is again a loss.
Huge.
So on this subject, I think Dina has as well. We've really raised our children differently with intent.
Uh-huh.
So less television when they were younger,
Yeah,
more traveling and seeing all kinds of things, more volunteering and seeing all kinds of states of people's lives.
So important.
More like we did not have meals with phones ever.
Oh, that's good.
Cell phone not at the dinner. And my both kids do not get sucked in by the Instagram filters and things. And my son has actually really rejected it. And he and his friends go fishing in summer.
That's so good.
Awesome.
Our son Elliot, they would always go fishing.
And they go out.
Somebody who goes and fishes.
And then they go to a field and kick the ball around for the afternoon because it's nice out. That's what we need to get back to. And I don't know how we get there. It's hard. It's challenging. But I do think at the core, and I think that's kind of what you're trying to do next. And what I have a very deep passion for is that's because people don't know who they are.
Oh yeah.
I had a model give me this. It's like I have lots of journals and I'm constantly note taking and surrounded by books. And so people give me journals, and she gave me this journal, and I can't remember. It's basically the wording on the front says, do this to create yourself. It's something about creating yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? It was like this gut, like, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You don't create yourself. You discover yourself.
Yeah.
That's like deep. That's work of, what do I naturally like to do? What am I drawn to? What are my gifting? Getting to know you instead of, we've also through the years had parents sit across the table or the desk from me and be like, well, I know that Shirley wants to do this, but here's what she's going to do. She's going to go to college for this, and she's going to go to the college that I went to. And she's going to go be in the sorority that I was in. And then after, she's going to come back and she's going to live in Chesterfield, Missouri, and she's going to be happy. I had a girl years ago, this 15 years ago. She was like, I don't want to become my mother who got her degree and never fulfilled that. That's the one thing that I will never do. But guess what? That's what she's doing.
Yeah. And if she's happy,
true,
there's nothing wrong with that.
That is very true.
However, we were kind of talking before we started the podcast. I've always said to my children, like, find what you love and the money will follow.
Yes.
Which is what you did with your life.
Yes.
But that's hard and scary.
It's hard and scary and risky.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is. I've never had to know 5 years from now. I could have a vision for it.
Sure.
Yeah. I think because my father died suddenly when I was 19 of a massive heart attack of stress. And then I got pregnant, became a single mom a year later.
Lots of
it's
stress.
like
That's
a lot of things
compounding together.
over and over. And then I had my first business when I was 23 called Body Heat Workout Studio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I spent all the money on decor.
Because that was your passion.
Yeah. We had neon lights and the space was amazing. 9 months later, I was like, I think I need to file bankruptcy.
I chose the wrong things of importance. Yeah.
I didn't do it. So then I'm like, I'm a failure. But I also think it kind of, on a foundational level, made me brave.
Well, failure brings wisdom.
Yes.
It does. Oh, you guys will love this. I have a model. The first model I ever placed years ago, her name's Sarah Olson. Now she's married and lives in Denver and has this life, and she's still in my life. A lot of them, I just love them, and it's a really special relationship. She went through, and she's very creative. So it was a time where she had a jewelry line that she would make, and then she started doing wood carving or like wood burning.
Oh, okay.
You know how you
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. She's just very artistic. So she calls me, this is probably, 7 or 8 years ago. She was like, Mary, I made this, it's a cutting board, and I put on the cutting board the best thing that I learned from you. And I'm sending it to you as a gift, and I just want you to know. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what amazing, eloquent thing did I say, right? That she burned it onto.
I'm waiting for the punchline on this one.
It hangs in our kitchen, and in huge black letters it says "Fail Big."
Oh, I love that.
And
Very true, though.
She was like, "You taught us that's the only way and it is the only way." And now I look at our adult children. We have 4 of them, and they all have taken kind of unique, different kind of paths. And I think as parents, we all go, am I doing a good job or am I doing a horrible job?
Right.
But on the other side of it, like our son just opened his first restaurant, and he always says, I could have never done it had I not watched you modeled that for us.
Yeah.
Find what you love, pursue it. It's going to be scary. You're not going to know, you'll know the next step when it's in front of you.
Yeah.
And then you take the next one. And then,
but it totally, so again, if we go back to some generational things that are going on, I think there's always been a fear of failure. That's not like a new thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
But the level of it is off the charts.
It's paralyzing for younger people.
Because it's performance. I've said too, thank God there wasn't social media while I was building my life.
I think because there's so many eyes on you.
Yes.
You're accountable.
And then there's also a lot of like, even here, I see people, I'm an expert. And I'm like, wow, you've been doing this a year and you're an expert.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought you had to do the 10,000 hours or what they say to have knowledge in it. So I think the fear of failure is linked back to social media too, because everything's a performance.
Well, and in that scenario, it's not even just the kid. It's the parent putting up the kid.
Yes.
It is.
As an example. And I wouldn't say I'm not guilty of that.
Yeah.
But like my son's going off to college. He wants to be a helicopter pilot, but he keeps saying, "What if I hate it?" And I'm like, then you go.
Then you do something.
You take another
else.
path.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's
It
fine.
is okay.
And he's like, all right, but he's having a tough time with that. And I think again, it's generational. That
I think so.
It's like, no, you go into things and you just succeed, and that's it. But that's a very unrealistic expectation.
God,
and it's
unrealistic.
so hard on a person's
So much
psyche.
pressure.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be refined in the fire. So even when our models are traveling, and I understand, well, first of all, everybody has an opinion about it. It's never gray. It's black or white. It's either that's the most amazing thing that you're a model, or, oh my God, you're in the
Judgment.
Yes, there's no middle.
Yeah.
And it's based on everybody's little teeny tiny knowledge of what it even is.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, and I see the pressure of parents, like that's why we're like, don't even say that you're modeling.
Yeah.
Don't add the extra pressure.
The label.
Yeah.
The label.
Because that's going to carry.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they tell him to say instead?
Well, first of all, we say you don't even have to say anything until you're actually gain the momentum that you're doing it. Because again, I feel like it used to be more that way, but now everybody has to tell you what they're eating and what they're doing and what they're
right.
Yeah.
Everything's on display.
Instead of just going, I'm going to focus on doing what I do. So I've said, I don't know if I would have kept going if I had to share my whole journey on social media, because I failed a million times.
Yeah, of course.
So
I completely changed careers in the middle of my life. So
that's so good.
It is terrifying though.
Yes.
I'll never forget. So I was in a 6-figure IT job that I hated.
Yes.
But I was very good at.
Yes.
And I remember my mom saying, "You're going to give that up and you're going to wax eyebrows?" And you want to please your mother.
I know.
You love your mother. And I love my mom and I totally respect her.
Yes.
And I was like, well, that's not all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yes. There's more to it than that. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, yes, I'm going to be waxing eyebrows.
Yes.
And it'll be fine.
Yes.
But look, here we are now.
It'll be fine is the thing that everyone says I should get that tattooed on my body someplace, because whenever somebody would come with, my go-to is it'll be fine, because it will be.
It always works out.
It always works out. I love that I think there's so many people who can't allow themselves to follow that real thing.
So mine came out of out of 9/11. That was my change. So I was supposed to take the train from Boston to Philadelphia through New York City.
Yes.
That afternoon.
Wow.
And all that happened. And I was already feeling that rustling, like unhappiness in myself. And I loved the spa. It was such a place of peace. I found myself envious of the estheticians. I was like, oh, everyone's so happy to see you.
Yes.
And what happened afterwards is the next trip I had to take for work. I was in New York and I'm standing at the top of the subway and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. But I'm living in this expensive city and I'm going to change. My first year as an esthetician, I made $22,000.
Wow.
That is a scary leap.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
And that was probably good.
I was like, hey, you made money.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah. So, but that's, and so it takes a lot of fortitude.
It does.
To get there. And I'm kind of feeling myself burgeoning into another arena now too, as we talk about wellness, and that's a passion for me. But that kind of leads to where you're heading next too.
Yeah.
Where are you heading next?
I just want to say that one of my other favorite quotes is frustration is the great truth giver. Like you're just frustrated in what you're doing.
Yeah.
But people will shove that down so hard and not go, wait a minute, what is this telling me? So during COVID, in our office, we have this massive wall covered with magazine covers and campaigns and just the success that our models have had. And it all hinged on travel. Mm-hmm. So when we were in lockdown and we have a live work, I would sit and look at that wall and go, this can't possibly be, is this going to come back, first of all?
Yeah.
And when? Mm-hmm. And then what does that look like? So
and that even depended on the cities you were going to.
It
evolved so differently across the whole world.
It did.
And opened at different places and had different rules. And
yes. We had models traveling as when the lockdown came, we were having models come back. When it initially happened, the beginning of COVID, we were in New York in February of 2020. The last fashion show of New York Fashion Week was always Marc Jacobs. It's not that way anymore, but it was always like the end. And we had a model from St. Louis, Minnie Warren, walk in. It was a really big deal. We're so excited. But we were back in this room, backstage, literally, I'm telling you, people were like, you're like right up next to each other. There's 60 models, all the hair and makeup, all the photographers.
Wow.
Everybody's hugging because you can't just hug. You have to, like you have to, and then all of a sudden, you start to go, wait, this COVID thing is like turning into something. And then we were on the way to Milan. We landed in Detroit, which was our connection to all these people saying, turn around.
Yeah. Because what week was that? I remember
It was,
I remember them talking about Fashion Week and me going,
is that going to happen? It's the end of February, first part of March.
Yeah.
By the time they got to Milan, because it goes New York, London, Milan, Paris.
And Italy was getting hammered.
Italy was really bad.
Right.
And they said no more audiences in the show, which is kind of funny because when you think about it, all the models and everybody, there can still be a show, but you're just not going to have an audience.
Yeah.
Anyway, we turned around. And then in that time, for us, we started to go, for me, it was reflecting on what I started in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the foundation of what I love? It's been in the vehicle of working with models all these years, and that will always be a part. But I'm a woman's woman. Like I love women in business. I love a side hustle. I love somebody who will take that unique path and go, I don't know, I'll figure it out as I go. Like I that's what I did, and that's what I continue to do. And when I stopped, I've always wanted to write a book, and I've had variations of writing before, but I started really honing in on what it was in that time. And now I'm in the process of really writing. And I just think we all have a unique life that God has for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether or not you endeavor to actually follow and do that. And I don't think it has to be a business, or it could be anything. It could be anything that brings you joy and fills you up, or you're excited to do it. It could be something. My sister-in-law is passionate about Hot Wheel cars. Who would have thought? Like
cute
at
is
50,
that?
Yeah.
she buys them and she like custom does them. And there's a whole community of Hot Wheel people.
Shut up, I had no
Wow.
idea.
Yeah.
Either.
I've been doing paint by numbers.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, our daughter does that. It's great, isn't it?
I love it.
It's soothing.
It is so soothing.
Uh-huh.
And I'll just put on music, and
So
I'll have a glass of
good.
wine, and
So
I'll paint
good.
by number. I did just order one that's kind of weird. It's almost bejeweled. So it's little stones that you
Oh, I've
place.
seen that. I think I saw it.
Interesting.
My husband's like, you have lost your mind. Like, you're going to go insane doing this little mosaic thing. And I'm
It's
like,
so
but it's
good.
so
Good for
your brain.
relaxing.
It's so
Yeah.
relaxing.
Yes.
You know, part of when people are in recovery, a lot of times it will include coloring or painting
Mhm.
because it's a soothing. Like I think about the things that we would do as kids that were just part of kind of fueling that creative.
Mhm.
In our office, we have this image. I can't think of it. James Victor, I think is his name, is the artist that I follow.
Mhm.
And he has this, it's in this cool writing that says, what made you weird as a kid makes you great today.
Yeah.
So true.
And it comes all crinkled. It comes in a box, like this big of a box. And you're supposed to uncrinkle it and keep it like that because he doesn't want it to be perfect. So I framed it in a shadow box so you see all
the texture. in
the
it.
texture.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many people respond to that
Yeah.
image.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what is actually interesting is I feel like of all the flaws in the world today, I do think the world has opened up to people being different
Oh yeah.
more
more
Yes.
so now than ever. You see
than ever.
Which is a
Even-
good
Mhm.
thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
Yes.
I don't think people are as, which is so ironic because young people don't feel that still. And I'm like,
No.
I'm fully aware. That,
Yes.
Like, but I've always been the one that likes the oddball. Like,
Yeah,
Well, and we've also done the work to know who we are.
yes.
that's true.
So, and it's a different.
But my
feel
whole life,
for
my
people.
whole life, I've been
Yeah.
the one that befriended the kid that gets bullied. And
Yeah.
like, I just, I don't know. I like people for just who they are.
Yes. We're not supposed to be the same.
No, we are not supposed to.
We're not
There's
supposed to
something
look
beautiful
the same.
in,
And,
there's something beautiful in the uniqueness of people.
Yes.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I think people think that, so the fashion editorial world of modeling is not traditional pretty.
No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
And that's one of the things that I loved. I remember speaking at this high school in Iowa years ago because I would go do a lot of that sort of thing. And I go into this classroom and literally in the front row, there's like the 4 pretty blonde girls in the front waiting to be discovered. You always know.
Yes.
I'm like,
You walk in.
oh, hello.
There they are.
Yeah.
They're ready for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking, and there's this girl in the back of the room that has, now this sounds, I found out later, which was a little girl, she was hit in the mouth with a baseball.
Oh.
So there was kind of this permanent fullness to, I mean, probably now
her
people
lip.
would pay a lot of money to
Yeah.
have. And it was unique. And then she had these big ears and this strong brow line. It was a very unusual beauty.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
But I couldn't take my eyes off of her. Like the
Mhm.
whole time I'm talking, I kept looking at her going, I've never seen somebody who looks like you.
Yeah.
So after the class, I remember everyone's standing and and I make a beeline to the back and I could hear these girls going, you've got to be kidding.
Uh-huh.
But she
Wow.
went on to model in New
Yeah.
York. Like people were like, she almost doesn't look, she almost had an alien-esque quality about
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
But, we get briefs from the casting directors for all the big brands, and they'll be very descriptive. Like, we want somebody that almost is bird-like. Like they'll, like the way that the language in our world, maybe from the outside, people think, well, that's weird. But I always say I'm not looking for the girl that all the guys in the sports bar thinks is hot.
Yeah.
That's not the fashion editorial part. I'm looking for that person who's like unique with a little twist, or kind of different, or maybe she was the awkward one in school. There's been so many. We had this girl from Texas that a woman moved from St. Louis. I never knew the woman, but she knew of me. She's at this book study and she sees the girl. Her name was Millicent. And she was like, Mary Clarke needs to see you. She's 6 feet tall, just all arms and legs, could eat us all under the table. That's just her body, kind of awkward. She had a really extreme overbite that Jeff was able to get. Jackie Demko did her orthodontics, gifted her.
Oh, wow.
Because she never could have afforded it. Like, it was not possible. She went on and she'd been homeschooled, so she was very socially awkward and couldn't really communicate. And I remember the first time she came, her parents drove her from Texas, like salt of the earth people, drove back, and Jeff looked at me and he was like, that's never happening, right? There's so much work to be done, but she did. Like, over a couple of years of more time, the first time she walked on the runway at our tribute show, she literally, like, her shoe kind of, she was just awkward, but I was like, it's okay. Now that's checked off the list. So, now you don't have to be nervous about that anymore. You've already done it. So it's okay. And then she went on right before COVID, walked for Saint Laurent and did all these big, and we have this video clip of her going, I never could have imagined that I could do that. But one of the things that we would do, we also have them build vision boards, dream boards. So they have them in their rooms. I have one as an adult. I'll be doing it for the rest of my life. The beginning of every month, I sit and I do my own little version in my planner of just encouraging words to myself. And we've also had models. We had a model once that could never do the dream board. She just never, and she was living with us at the time. And I was like, Haley, why won't you, I need you to do this dream board. And she said, I just can't see it for myself.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and if you can't see it for yourself, it's not going to happen.
No.
But no matter where we're at, it's just like how you could see yourself doing what you're doing right now. Even though you weren't there yet, you could have that vision for yourself. And I think that's the new passion thing for me, is speaking to women about, you can do whatever you want to do. You limit you. Nobody else limits you. Like,
is that kind of what your book is about?
It is. It's about the things that I had to overcome to be in this unique place. And we never really fit. We were raising our kids in Jardine Perry, Missouri, running an international modeling company in our basement with our 4 kids. We'd go we'd be at New York Fashion Week. I remember one time we land from Paris. Our son Elliot and Cameron both had a football game. We land from Paris, put our stuff, put on our Timberland gear, stop at Walmart to get, I don't even know what we were getting, but I remember we were walking through Walmart in Lake St. Louis, and I was like, none of these people know or care about Paris Fashion Week.
No, you're right. I mean, it all, at the same token, though, that all dribbles down into real life. Like, I think, so I am like fashion stunted is maybe what I would say. And the only way I learn anything is by looking at other people. And I've never understood the runway thing ever. But I also have a grand concept that it dribbles down.
It does.
It might be extravagant and wild on the runway, but some piece of that, some element of that is going to end up in my wardrobe.
It will. It will. Even if it's 3 years down the road, it literally, that is, and also trends of what hair was on the runway or what the makeup was. So a lot of what we teach too is we have the most incredible before and afters of our models, not taking them to something away from their natural beauty, but bringing it back to it. So it can be, will be like, don't tan, have your natural skin tone. We had a girl, Allie, who she would dye her hair blonde and flat iron it, but she had this natural curl. I was like, can we just try it?
Can we play with that?
Can we play with that and see what happens? And then she ended up getting her hair cut, and her natural tone of her hair was like this really warm, kind of earthy, golden brown. And then her eyes are very light golden. So and the waves of her hair, I remember talking to her agency in London and him going, there's a lioness thing about her. There's something that's very lioness. And I'm like, but that wasn't, we had to get back to that. Like get back to that version. So part of what we do, we did a Seek Find You event in the spring, and I talked about a lot of these kinds of things, like following your passion. And we had great women that participated. I want to do a women's event in St. Louis in September and do the same thing. But the other thing that we touch on is the trends in fashion, what's happening with hair, what's happening, because for everybody, it's easy to lose touch or to feel like there's this vast thing between what you see in a fashion magazine and what's a real life reality. And I think that that's good too, because as women, we can't give up on ourselves.
So talk about that Seek Find You a little bit more. Elaborate on what that is and what you're doing with that.
I started with a women's event last spring, and it was the minute I got up and started the event, my husband looked at me and he was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, right?
It just felt very natural.
It just, and I was like, yes. And so I had a podcast that I'm bringing back because I had taken time and I wanted to get clear on what it is that I'm the most passionate about. And it is that unique thing that's in you that leads to your unique life.
Right.
And learning the skills and the mindset and the braver you get, the braver you become, because it's like flexing a muscle where you go, oh, that didn't kill me. Let me keep going. So I'm bringing back the podcast. We're going to do a bigger event in the fall in September. After we do a tribute show every year in November. This year will be our 12th, I think.
Wow. I participated in
one. It keeps growing and last year we did a forum the next day, and everyone was like, it was so inspiring to hear from all the agents and hear from the models. And I just think gathering together, back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this, togetherness, like being connected. We're supposed to be, my husband's brand is called Love is One. We're supposed to be one. This division
it's so ugly.
It's so ugly.
It breaks my heart every day.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about people being their unique self, the one thing I think the problem right now in the world is a lot of times if you try, you're going to get slapped down.
Yeah.
By something, someone, judgment or and it's so wrong.
It is fundamentally wrong.
Yes. I mean, I know I myself I'm pretty confident. I do know who I am, but I still feel like in this world, don't get to be exactly who I am.
Right. I feel like most people probably feel that way a little bit.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And how much happier would we all be if we could just exist?
Yeah, just be.
And love each other regardless of differences and things. Like
that's how it was when I grew up.
Yes,
my parents had friends that were talking about today on The View. You would never ask somebody about their religion. You would never ask somebody, who are you voting for?
Right.
Those things that was nobody's business.
Personal.
That was a personal thing. And in today's world, we have friends that own a business who they're getting a lot of pushback on social media. And I'm like, I know that this is hard, but you have to not respond. You have to let that fly off your back. And we learned that Nightline did a story about the modeling world. This was probably 13 years ago now. And they came and they followed us. We befriended the producers. And they're like, they get it that we run our business with our heart and our company's name is Mother because this is how we navigate, blah, blah, blah. As it got closer to airing, they go, it's not, their producers are saying it's not salacious enough.
No, yeah.
So they brought in some other story and then they changed the B-roll of or the audio that was over B-roll to make it more meaty. And we were in New York watching it. It was during Fashion Week. It was a Nightline that was on at prime time.
Mm.
I remember we went 15 minutes in. This is back when Jeff still smoked. He was like, I got to go. And just paced up and down the street of New York going,
this is not who I am.
This is not who this is. We thought it's the end of us, blah, blah, blah. People don't really care, to be honest. That's when I learned there's really not bad press. It may not represent you, but the news cycle moves so fast.
Yeah.
But also with social media, when people start saying ugly things, which I would never
Oh, I know. If you wouldn't say it in person,
I would never do it. I don't even understand what the motivation. I don't get what that. I'm like, ooh, you need to have some therapy. You know,
right?
If somebody's capable of that,
yeah.
But
and that's the nice way,
right? That was a
that was
nice
a
way.
nicer way. Like they're not even that nice.
I know,
sometimes.
that's so true. But I'm like, when did our culture become so mean?
So there is a guy that wrote a marketing book, and now I cannot think of his name, but it's called Pendulum.
Okay.
And in it, he talks about these swings, and he actually tracks it over like 200 or maybe it's even 2,000 years.
Wow.
Of these swings in the personality of the world.
Mm.
And we are in the apex of what he calls, there's a we generation and there's a me generation.
Okay. Yes.
We grew up in the me generation.
Okay.
Where individuality was kind of accepted and loved. The we generation is groupthink. So 2024 is the apex of we.
Wow.
And so if we follow history, it means that this divisiveness will break. I
believe that.
This should be the peak.
I believe that.
It should start to break. It should start to, and I see that. I do see that. Like I see my kids, going, oh, I'm tired of not being able to say what I think because I'm worried I'm going to upset somebody.
Yes.
And they're starting to, with their own friends, say the things out loud that they think whatever they might be.
Yeah.
And without fear of judgment, or if they have judgment, they're like, well, this is like who I am.
That's good.
And if we can figure out how to break that mold, people are going to feel so much better.
Yes.
If we can swing, and all of the worst things in history happened during the apex of we. That was the time of Hitler.
Wow.
It was the
cycle.
Like 1968-ish when all of that turmoil was happening. That's where we are. That's where we are.
That makes sense to me. I see it.
So it gives me hope that we're at the top.
Yeah.
I keep saying we're at the top of this. It's going to get better.
Yes. I do think people are growing weary of it. And I think that, it's exhausting to be in that negative. I'm by nature an optimistic person. Mm-hmm. So I know I know that not everyone is, but it's not rose-colored glasses. It's just, it can be different.
Sure. And
a lot of it is just the daily interaction. And that's, I think, the other reason why creating more of a community to really support each other, I had wonderful female mentors that I can look back at my life in different seasons that would somehow appear, and they really kept me going. And I'm to this day quoting things that they said to me.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. Mentors are huge.
Oh, yes.
That's actually something I have missed and I have not had. I would I actually am in this moment of wishing I had a mentor. Because I don't think I'm the wisest person in the room. Like,
Right.
I know there's somebody that knows more than me.
Do you know the podcast with Julia Louis-Dreyfus? And she only interviews women of a certain age.
Mm.
Her first one was Jane Fonda.
Okay.
And it's such a good podcast because they're all at this different place.
You're getting the wisdom.
You are getting the wisdom.
So I say that in the facial room,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a relationship there, a safe relationship.
Oh,
and I'm a very
yes.
unjudgmental person. So people will talk to me about all kinds of things. I have clients I've worked on for 18 years. I have clients I've worked on every 6 weeks for 18 years.
Wow.
So I am a part of their family. The crazy thing about that is I get to live with women imparting wisdom on me every day.
Yeah, that's so great.
And then sharing that with other women as they
yes, that's so true.
So I always say I have like the culmination of wisdom of women.
Yes.
Just from
interaction.
23 years of conversations.
Right. That's good.
And it is amazing. It's amazing. But now I'm ready for someone to come in and say, Jennifer, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you pushed into that, or whatever? And it'll happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's more women coming together in spaces and communities like that, nurturing other women. I really do see it, where before it was kind of an old boys club kind of thing. And I think,
oh no, the power is absolutely, statistically right now, the power is shifting to women. Even in college campuses, women are in fact, it's almost a crisis of men now, which seems insane to say.
Yeah.
But what's happening is women are so succeeding on college campuses, and men, for some reason, young men, stopped having the drive to compete academically for some reason.
Wow.
That has lessened, and now women are starting to take over the world, which who knew?
I mean, I do have to say there's a different, I don't know. I mean, obviously it takes both, but I think that the heart that a woman brings is important.
Oh yeah, the softness of it.
Yeah.
Or just the compassion.
The nurturing part.
Yeah.
The not, I just think that even within what we do, there's a guy in our industry that's kind of known to be kind of tough, hard, harsh with the models. And this was probably a month or two ago, we did a Zoom call with him. And he was like, it was him and a woman who works on the board of this agency, and Jeff and I. And he made the mistake of saying something that I'm like, I am warm and fuzzy until I'm not. And he was like, Mary, we're not here to be their cheerleader. And I was like,
of course you are.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, hello.
That's exactly what you're there for, is to be that encouragement that says, you can do this. You've got this. Go in there. And I was like, I know that that's really what he thinks.
Yes. So what would be your kind of last thought on how people can, in this world, work to find their authentic self?
I think you have to start with the foundational thing of reminding yourself who you were before the world told you who you are. Which can be, what did I like as a kid, or when I was 15, or what was I passionate about, or those things. You can bring those things back up, So I think it starts there, and then just allowing yourself the freedom to be who you are and start dabbling in spaces, if that makes sense. Like,
I know there's a lot of ways. Like, one way, there are different places you can go where you do exercises to help you find your identity.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where you're like digging down through a process to see where your core lies. Because I don't think a lot of people know.
No, I don't think a lot of people know either.
Especially younger people. I think
For
older
sure.
people more are aware. Just time does that for you. I do think there's a way to find it.
Yeah, because I've also met people of all ages who haven't ever found it, but they also didn't intentionally seek to find it. I am a forever student. Like when I'm in the car, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm forever wanting to learn. I want to learn more. I want to know more. I probably annoy people going, today in the podcast, blah, 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 because but that's just how I'm wired and what I love. So there are no excuses, because to me, it breaks circumstance, or there wouldn't be a Oprah Winfrey. Like there wouldn't be a Tyler Perry. People that broke the mold, just decided I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep following the things that I love and let that take me on a journey. I don't have to have it all planned out. When a parent comes in and they're like, what's the itinerary look like for while we're in New York? We're like, you said itinerary. That is so. You're funny. Yeah. All right, isn't that cute? And guess what? You're going to find out the night before, and it may change the next morning, and then it's going to keep changing because it's constantly moving. But it teaches you to be nimble.
That's how sports tournaments were when my kids were growing up.
Yeah, you're like, there is no plan. I mean, there is, but there isn't.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Sure.
You're going to find out as you go. But if you're not even going in the direction to find out, you're never going to find out.
So how do people find you? Like, what are the places they can find you?
I just launched, our business is mothermodelmanagement.com. I have mothermaryclarke.com, which also has free resources for people to do some of the things that we're talking about discovering. So you can find that on my website.
Okay.
And then my social media is at Mother Mary Clarke. And our models are at Mother Model.
Do you have a future title of your book yet, or is that still in work?
Still in the works. I went to an event in Nashville. I'm working with this great place called Brand Builders Group that really helps you nurture your personal brand. So I'm in the process of
figuring that out.
Which is figuring it out.
Awesome.
I love it. Always figuring it out.
It'll
work itself out.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. I was trying to think what the phrase was.
It'll be fine.
So, well, thank you so much for coming.
This was so
really
fun.
Appreciate it. I think these are words that lots of people need to hear, and I'm glad you were here to share them with us and the world. And we hope that you guys, our audience, will like and follow and share this. This is definitely stuff that people need to hear. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It was amazing.
And we are going to wrap it up with just a little.
We want to make a quick but important disclosure. The information and advice shared in this podcast are intended to provide general knowledge and understanding about wellness and health-related subjects. They are not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new health regimen. Remember, your health is your responsibility, and it's always best to consult with a healthcare professional.